Good morning, everyone. Before we go to our discussion, let me show you first our objectives. First is it is necessary for this audience or students to understand what learner-centered teaching is. Second, they need to know for whom learning-centered teaching is for. And third, at the end of the discussion, the topic can be explained thoroughly. We are done in our objectives. Let's go to our introduction. The learners are the core elements in the whole learning and teaching process. Learners are rational and social beings whose growth and development are uniquely different from each other. Individual differences, among others, are attributed to genetic and environmental factors inherent in every learner's circumstances. Thus, in a learning-centered instruction, it is of a paramount importance to identify and examine how to meet each learner's learning need, and from there, adopt a classroom pedagogy or sets of instructional strategies that will facilitate and bring the learners to their full human potentials. Our topic is all about learner-centered teaching. But first, what is learner-centered teaching? It is an approach to teaching that focuses on student learning rather than on what the teacher is doing. So the meaning of learning-centered teaching is that it focuses on the student and not on the teacher. So next is student-centered learning. So what is student-centered learning? It is acknowledging student voice as central to the learning experience. For short, put students' interest first. So now, let's discuss about characteristics of learner-centered teaching. First, we have the learner-centered teaching engages a student into the hard, messy work of learning. Or, on any given day, in most classes, teachers are working much harder than students. I repeat, teachers are working much harder than students. These characteristics is teaching that motivates and empowers students by giving them some control over learning process. Learner-centered teaching encourages students to reflect on what they are learning and how they are learning it. The second one is learner-centered teaching includes explicit skill instruction. Learner-centered teachers teach students how to think, solve problems, evaluate evidence, analyze arguments, generate hypotheses. All those learning skills essential to mastering material in the discipline. The third one, learner-centered teaching encourages students to reflect on what they are learning and how they are learning it. So, there is a connection in the second characteristics and the third characteristics. But I will explain this further. These third characteristics, they challenge student assumptions about learning and encourage them to accept responsibility for decisions that may making about learning. Like how they study for exams, when they do assigned reading, whether they revise the writing or check their answers. It is teaching that encourages collaboration, acknowledging the classroom as a community where everyone shares the learning of agenda. I repeat, they shares everyone the learning agenda. So the fourth is learner-centered teaching motivates students by giving them some control over learning process. So the characteristics have a connection. So next is the fourth one. This is the learner-centered teaching motivates the students by giving them some control over the learning process. Learner-centered teachers search out ethical, responsible ways to share power with students. In short, they encourage students to reflect on what they are learning and how they are learning it. And last, we have Learner-centered teaching encourages collaboration. Learner-centered teachers work to develop structures that promote shared commitments to learning. So, those are the 5 characteristics of learner-centered teaching. So now, let's discuss about the paradigm shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching. Okay? But before that, let us know what is from teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching. This learning is most meaningful when topics are relevant to the students' lives, needs, and interests. The way we see things has a huge impact in our lives. The shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching facilitates the adoption of new practices that is applicable at present. The teacher's role from being a provider of information to being a facilitator of learning. The shift increases the engagement of students in the learning process and makes the learners more responsible for their own learning. By creating this environment, you increase the motivation of students to remain engaged in the learning process. You also foster independence and allows individual differences and learning style which conforms to the learner's need. First of the paradigm shift is philosophical perspective, which is the teacher-centered philosophies. We have here the essentialism. This essentialism is introduced by William Bagley. So before that, let us know what is essentialism. So when we say essentialism, this is the idea that people and things have natural characteristics that are inherent and unchanging. So there are 2 origins of essentialism. First is we have the idealism and second we have the realism. But first, what is idealism? In the word idea, we comes in our mind, what is this word? So I give you the meaning of this. Idealism is the idea of scenarios of the world which are not in the real world but only in your mind. Okay? While the realism, this is the view that an object or thing really exists and has certain attributes independently of what people think about it. So, in short, the idealism is just in your mind, but the realism, it really exists. This too is often called traditionalism or conservatism. It is an educational theory that believes that the purpose of schooling is to impart necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes to enable young people to function as a fully developed human beings in the modern world. Essentialism basically teaches the basic subject or the core curriculum. So we are done in essentialism. Let's proceed in the second one, which is the perennialism. Perennialism derived from the word perennial, which means to endure the test of time. Perennialism in education means to teach what is everlasting. Perennialism believes that the focus of education should be the ideas that have lasted over centuries, which means for everlasting. Perennialists believe that one should teach the things that they believe are of everlasting importance to all individuals everywhere. Now we are done in the teacher-learner-centered. So now let's go to the learner-centered philosophies. We have 3 learner-centered philosophies. First is progressivism, second, humanism, third, constructivism. Let's discuss the first one, which is the progressivism. What is progressivism? Progressivism emphasizes the concept of progress, of which asserts that human beings are capable of improving and perfecting their environment. Progressivists believe that people learn best from what they consider most relevant to their lives. Students learn best when they pursue their own interest, satisfying their needs. In other words, learning by doing. Curriculum is built on the needs, experiences, abilities, and interests of students. That is the progressivism. Next is the second one, humanism. Humanism is a student-centered philosophy that focuses on enhancing one's innate goodness, rejects the idea of group-oriented education, and upholds the idea of enhancing individual development. This philosophy also believes that students should be actively involved with their education in all levels, and students should be able to make choices about what they will be learning. The purpose of humanism is to create interest in all spheres of life. Believes learning is viewed as a personal act to fulfill one's potential. Believes in the necessity of studying a person as a whole, particularly as they grow and develop over a lifespan. That is the humanism. The third one is constructivism. It refers to the idea that learners construct knowledge for themselves. Each learner individually and socially construct meaning as he or she learns. It suggests that learners should be active participants in the learning activities, that learning should be guided rather than presented by teachers, and that interaction and discussion are critical components of the learning process. Learning happens when students combine new and old ideas. However, learning occurs if students are actively engaged. It also a learning theory that equates learning with creating meaning from experiences.
Good day to each and everyone, especially to Coach Jude. Good day po, Coach. First, I am Waltao ZJ Morabi, and I'm one of the member of Study Hub number 4. My discussion for today is all about a qualitative examination of connections between learner-centered teaching and past significant learning experiences. According to Tim Brackenley-Bury, Bowling Green State University, December 10, 2012. It is about a qualitative examination of connections between learner-centered teaching and past significant learning experiences. Okay, when we talk about that, it is about the learner-centered teaching and the significant learning experiences of the learner, and faculty reflections and student learning. And the last one is active learning. Okay, according to Carlo Magno, De La Salle University, Manila, June 1, 2007, the Asia Pacific Education Research, Volume 16, Number 1. Okay, it is talk about the role of teacher efficacy and characteristics on teaching effectiveness, performance, and use of learner-centered practices. Okay, let's go to the teacher efficacy and characteristic on teaching effectiveness, performance, and the use of learner-centered practices. Okay, when we talk about that, it is involved the learner-centeredness, teacher performance, and teaching efficacy, and the last one is effective teaching. Okay, according to Maria Angeles Daro Hino Solango, Amparo Bendua Sinagsaw, Mindanao University of Science and Technology, Philippines, International Journal for Cross-Disciplinary Subjects in Education, Volume 5, Issue Number 4, 2014. It is talk about the impact of learner-centered teaching in students' learning skills and strategies. Okay, let's move to the impact of learner-centered teaching in students' learning skills and strategies. Okay, when we talk about that, it involves clear skills, instruction, and reflection on learning and how it is achieved, student control over learning and collaboration within the classroom community, the benefits of LCT or the learning-centered teaching, include increasing students' engagement, improving learning outcomes, and the development of lifelong learning skill. Okay, help is learners participate, connect, and add excitement to the content being delivered. According to Pankutpay and Manjula Malya, Department of Information Technology, Srinivas Institute of Management Studies, Pandeshwar, Mangalore, Karnataka International Journal of Current Research and Modern Education, Volume 1, Issue Number 1, 2016. It is talk about the student-centered learning in classrooms, a strategy for increasing students' motivation and achievement. Let's move to the student-centered learning in classroom, a strategy for increasing student motivation and achievement. Okay, using globalization, okay, strategy is using the strategy of globalization, okay, the student motivation will increase, okay, and the knowledge-driven economy is also strategy for increasing the student motivation, okay, and higher education, policymakers, and educational reforms. And the last one is according to Barbara M. McCombs and Linda Miller. It is talk about the learner-centered classrooms, practices, and assessments maximizing student motivation. Okay, the last is learner-centered classroom practices and assessments maximizing student motivation, learning, and achievement. Okay, when we talk about that, okay, think about whether anyone needs a recap. Okay, decrease distractions, structure your lesson well, think about lesson as a sequence, be prepared, structure a routine, provide written instruction, and the last one is manage negative behavior. Okay, let's go to the resistance to change. Okay, managing the shift. It is human nature to counteract any changes, but change is inevitable. The reason why people resist to change is because it is not easy transition and there is the fear of the unknown. Students resist learning-centered approaches for a variety of reasons. The four most common reasons students resist learner-centered approaches are: number 1, first, learner-centered approaches are more work. This approach is an important task for teachers facing educational design changes. However, the student objected because he knew what it meant to be more work for them. The fixed resistance is denied the right reasons. Okay, number 2, learner-centered approaches are more threatening. Why? Be more comfortable and used to following the expertise of the professor or have negative past experiences in courses attempting to implement learner-centered teaching. Feel nervous, okay, or stress about taking on new responsibilities or work. Okay, let's talk about learner-centered approaches in prognosis. Teachers must recognize that transitioning from one understanding level to another can cause students to feel a sense of loss. Okay? As they move from a simpler word to a more complex one, this emotional loss can manifest a resistance despite the intellectual benefits of the new approaches. Learner-centered approaches may be beyond students. Teachers should avoid unethical behavior and encourage students to resist, even if it means personal risk. Learner-centered teacher techniques may require approaches or structures beyond students' abilities, and despite most faculty being non-ethical. Okay, the last is faculty resistance. What is faculty resistance? Okay, it is involved students, colleges, and administrators may resist learning-centered approaches, which can be disheartening and potentially professional threatening. It's crucial to analyze the reasons and how faculty members can handle this level of resistance.
Good day, everyone. By the way, my name is Mikihara H. Halpi. Today, I am delighted to discuss a critical topic that has been a challenge in education faculty resistance to learner-centered approaches. To delve into this issue, we will explore its origins, understanding the subjections from both subjective and objective standpoints, and finding proactive ways to address these concerns.
Despite initial objections, we will see how students and faculty resistance can actually fuel positive changes in teaching practices. Join me as we unveil the complexities of this important issue and explore ways to move education forward.
Hola to each and everyone, I am the next presenter. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. I am Shamara Ismael from Bitolid ICT 1C. So, today I'm going to discuss about the dimensions of learner-centered teaching. According to Weiner, there are 5 practices or dimensions that need to change or to achieve learner-centered teaching. The first one is functions of content. So what is the functions of content in learner-centered teaching? So, it is a content building a knowledge base, how the instructor and the students we have content. Level to which students engage content, instructor allows students to memorize content, instructor also encourage students to transform and affect and reflect on the most content to make their own meaning of it. In addition to building a knowledge base, the content facilitates students to build an appreciation for value of content, build discipline-specific learner-centered methodologies, practice using inquiry or ways of thinking in disciplines, learn to solve real problems. Students engage in most of the content to make it their own. Students make meaning of the content. The last one is the content is formed or framed so that students see how it can be applied in this future. And also, the role of the teacher or instructor in a learner-centered teaching is more than a coach than a person with all the answers. Learning occurs through the focus or process of the interaction between the instructor and the students and among the students. The instructors creates an environment that accommodates different learning style. So how we accommodate different learning style? We all have in a way we best known. Odds are very student in your class, but there are different preferred learning styles which can make it different for you to have the most effective teacher. However, by trying to incorporate various methods into your teaching, you have be able to reach the majority of your students. At this college level, it is expected that students have an idea of how to adapt to the teachers, although it cannot hurt to help them out a little. So below, I'm going to discuss the 3 major learning styles or ways in which you can accommodate them. The first one is the virtual learning style. Someone with a learning or virtual learning style has a preference for seen or observed thought, including pictures, diagrams, demonstrations, displays, handouts, films, flip chart, or etc. The second one is the auditory learning style. Someone with an auditory learning style has a preference for the transfer of informing or information through or listening to the spoken word or self-others of sounds and noises. These people will use phrases such as "tell me," "let's take it over," and will be the best able to perform on the test after listening to instructions from the expert. The last one to accommodate them in learning style is the kinesthetic or tactile learning style. These methods are someone with a kinesthetic learning style has a preference for physical experience like touching, feeling, holding, or doing practical hands-out experiences. These people will use phrases such as "let me try," "how do you feel," and will be able to perform a task by doing ahead and trying it out, learning as they go. And those are the ways to accommodate them in learner's style. And the last one of dimension is the who should take responsibility for learning. Only learners can do that. Learning can impose upon or given to students. It's sometimes they have to do for themselves, as such as it makes sense that they have responsibility for their own learning. Often it is the faculty to thus because we adopt our teaching to fit requests or needs of students through detailed notes.
Good day everyone. Today is my turn right now to tackle about the purposes and the processes of assessment. So, why do you assess students? How does the manner in which you assess students have learning implication or consequences for students? So let's talk about assessing the students. So assessing students is crucial for evaluating their understanding and progress in a particular subject or course. It serves several purposes that contribute to the overall learning experiences. Learning implications of assessment plays a significant role in shaping the learning process and has implication for students' learning outcomes. So let's go about the point number 1. Point number 1 is assessment is integrated within the learning process. Allowing instructors to provide ongoing feedback to students, fostering improvement, instructors give formative feedback aimed at fostering improvement rather than just assigning grades, which helps students understand their strengths and areas for improvement. Self-assessment and peer assessment. There are multiple opportunities. Students have multiple opportunities to assess themselves and their peers, facilitating a deeper understanding of the subject matter. Learning from mistakes. Through self-assessment, students can learn from their mistakes and demonstrate mastery, promoting a deeper level of understanding, justification, and authentic assessment. Reasoning and justification. Instructors encourage students to justify their answers, promoting critical thinking and deeper engagement with the material. Authentic material assessment. The use of authentic assessment throughout the course ensures that students are evaluated based on a real-world task and application. Enhancing the relevance of the assessment. Student control and course management, allowing students some control over how the course is run, can have positive implications for their engagement and learning outcomes. Empowerment and engagement. Learning-centered approaches. Empowering students to take responsibility and share in decision-making about their courses can lead to increased engagement and a sense of ownership over their learning. So they shared decision-making, allowing students to have some say over policies, deadlines, and grading options, can foster a sense of ownership and accountability, leading to increased motivation and engagement. So conclusion, incorporating student-centered assessment practices and allowing students some control over the course can lead to a more engaging and effective learning environment, where students are just not passive recipients of knowledge, but are active participants in their own learning journey. That's all. Thank you.
So that's all our discussion about the learner-centered teaching foundations and characteristics. I hope you understand our discussion. Thank you for watching and listening.